I first want to thank the Rail Passengers Association. You've been by our side from day one on the Gulf for years. You had all the folks show up with suitcases at the when we started off back in 2016, the inspection train. You guys have supported us all the way through, and your help, your support has been invaluable. And I just want to, on behalf of the Southern Rail Commission, I want to thank you for that, and thank you for Jim, and thank you for his very capable staff. We've hosted your interns, and I hope you're going to do that again. Ned was one of those that we hosted, and we just really, y'all do an effective job, and we appreciate that. Thank you. As Jim said, my name's Knox Ross, and my expensive hobby is being chairman of the Southern Rail Commission. I kind of want to give you a little background on that for those that you don't know. The Southern Rail Commission is a three-state compact formed by an act of Congress back in 1982 to promote passenger, and we do promote freight rail in our three states of Mississippi, Louisiana, and Alabama. We have 6 commissioners from each state, all appointed by our governors. Our governors are actually ex officio members of our commission, and they have a specific representative of the governor from each state. We are all uncompensated for our work, and but we work hard at that. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, different things. But we've been working hard over the past 12, 14 years, specifically really coming out of, some of you may remember, the state of Louisiana had a chance to get $400 million to institute service between Baton Rouge and New Orleans. And they had the cooperation of Kansas City Southern at the time. That was all set up for them. All they really had to do is apply for the money, and they would have gotten it. The governor at that time decided he had higher aspirations to run for president, and he said it would look bad on a national scale if he accepted money from, I don't know, the Obama administration, I guess, at that time, so it just went away. And I remember coming to, I had not been appointed to the commission yet, but the governor was about to. And I came to that meeting where that was about the lowest point you can be. And I would point that out to you, and I think Peter did a great job of that, is that you just have to keep trying. You just have to keep going. So the commission is made up of 3 states. We all pay in dues. Our DOTs basically pay dues in, and we use that money to have policy help in Washington, to have people in our states to help us with promotion and making us look good and getting our message out effectively. So we've been working for years. You know, after Katrina, the Sunset Limited east of New Orleans was eliminated. And there was on-the-ground support to bring that back, which was really interesting to us. We went and met with the governor of Mississippi at the time, Phil Bryant, who probably would bill himself as the nation's first Tea Party governor, among other things, but that's what he billed himself at the time. And we met with him in Jackson. We brought Mark Murphy, who many of you know, that was the long-distance head at the time, and we were meeting with him to see what kind of response we were going to get from the state. He said, look, I get calls every week from people on the coast wanting to know where our train is. And we were shocked by this, that he even knew about it or cared. So I tell you that to say, these calls you make work. They are paying attention to you. I mean, we were flabbergasted that he even cared about a train that ran 3 days a week in the middle of the night on the Mississippi coast, but he did. And he did because people were calling him and asking him. And that's part of the genesis of where we came from. So starting off, our project the whole time I've been on the commission is we've been working on Baton Rouge, New Orleans, because there's been such state support for it over the years. But after Katrina, our real focus became New Orleans to really Jacksonville and Orlando. And that was what we wanted to do. We wanted to institute daily service, New Orleans, Jacksonville, Orlando. And we began working on that. I'd go to meetings. I went to the meeting in Cincinnati for 7-day Cardinal service back in the day. We would just keep going, trying to meet people and get to know people and get to know what we had to do. And so we began working on that. And then one day, and this is, again, why you keep working, one day, Todd Stennis with Amtrak, who many of you know, was in the Atlanta airport, and he ran into Senator Thad Cochran, who from Mississippi. And he saw him over in the corner of the waiting area, went over and talked to him. His wife was there. She comes over and says, "Todd, how did we get our train back?" He said, "He can do that." And so immediately we get a call. We're dispatched to D.C., and the rest is where we are today. And that's been 10 years ago. So the Southern Rail Commission, 3 states, 6 commissioners each state, we work together to promote passenger rail in our states. The critical part of that is we have congressional authority. We can apply for CRISI grants. We can apply for all these grants. We have standing. And we're also able to work projects a long time through administrations. So you see, say, Louisiana, you had Governor Jindal, not a friend. You had Governor Edwards, a great supporter. We're able to continue on projects through administration, some of which may not be friendly to us. So you see that. You see the coast train. We've had great iterations of that, culminating today with the CRISI award that Administrator Bose talked about this morning, a total project of over $200 million that will institute twice daily service between Mobile and New Orleans, which we believe will be a game changer for the Mississippi coast, Mobile and New Orleans. It brings something that hasn't been in existence since pre-Amtrak. It just a tremendous boon to the cities on that coast, something we worked very hard on to get done, and it just took years and years of work. And I'll go through some of the details of that later. We're also working, as I said, on Baton Rouge, New Orleans, which I have a map up there for that. Let's see, this is my little, yeah. So you can see how all that works. We're doing Baton Rouge, New Orleans. We're doing the I-20 corridor, which we've applied for a Fed-State partnership grant along with Amtrak. We've partnered with Amtrak on that, which is really tremendous. Amtrak has been through different leadership over the past few years. If you're all aware that they've had different ideas about the long-distance network. We won't get into all that. We could talk about today. We've got people that are working with us. We have great relationships with them. They have been, Nicole Busich and her team at the Network Development Department have been terrific. And we are working closely together on a Fed-State partnership grant, which we got. The state of Louisiana, we put a $2 million match into that. The state of Mississippi is putting $1 million match into that. We are very hopeful for a successful grant that will, on the I-20, that will get us all the way to what we need to do for construction. It will do all the other work. And then you heard from Mayor Friday Ellis and the other mayors that he represents who are already in the process of designing stations, designing their downtowns around it. It's an exciting time for that, and that would not be possible without the current Amtrak focus on this, and we really do appreciate that. We're also working on the Baton Rouge to Shreveport connection. Once we get the Baton Rouge to New Orleans connection in, that would connect to the I-20 train, and really we build that as a New Orleans to Dallas service. It's something that we think is very doable. We continue to work with the city of Pensacola, Florida on a Carter ID grant they made for service on the Panhandle. They've been able to have good discussions with the Florida Gulf and Atlantic Railroad there, who is open to this, which is a very important thing. But all of those projects are things we are working on diligently. Now, they would not happen at all without the cooperation of the Canadian Pacific Kansas City Railroad. And our relationship with them that really started when they reached out to us about help with their merger. And it was just, it goes back to what Peter was talking about. I mean, you just keep these relationships open. You never know when somebody's going to call you. And we had a former commissioner on our commission for Louisiana that CPKC reached out to because he used to work for Kansas City Southern, said, "Can you help us with the governor?" He calls me. I call John Robert. And we basically say, okay, here's a list of things we want. Well, by George, CPKC sent a letter back, said, yeah, we'll do that. We want I-20, we want Baton Rouge, New Orleans, we want all that stuff. Yeah, we'll do it. It was incredible, and you see it codified in the agreement between Amtrak and Kansas City CPKC is codified. And the STB will be following up and making sure they're following and doing what they said they would do. And that all came from being open and listening and then executing what we had to do. So we're very excited about all that. I mean, these are things that have just completely turned around for us. I mean, our original relationship with KCS was I have a way to put it I can't say in public, but let's just say go to where, stronger letter to follow. I mean, that was it. I mean, we would talk to them very occasionally, but it was never very good. But interestingly enough, my counterpart from Louisiana, John Spain, and I got to go to the Silver Spike for CPKC. That same gentleman was there. He was our best friend. It's wonderful. So it's amazing what a different boss will do for you, right? So we are culminating, I'm going to say 12, 14 years, but it's really more than that. I have a counterpart in Mississippi, Kay Kell, who's a former commission chairman herself, has been doing this for 25 or 30 years. She's the person who kept the lights on this when nothing was going on. But one or two things can turn if you can just keep pushing and you keep getting the right people, and you just never know who's going to respond to you. So, but having all that. So what I wanted to do, you kind of see what we're trying to do. And we're trying to work closely with Amtrak, closely with Larry and his team. We're listening to what they have to say. We're trying to look at their challenges. We're trying to see how we can help with their challenges through our work on Capitol Hill to try to meet those challenges, pointing out challenges we see here to them, just like y'all have done today with food service, but trying to work together to make this work for everybody, to make it a product we can all be proud of, but also bring more trains to more people in our part of the country. And so there's several things that I thought about as I was trying to think of what do I tell y'all today that you'd be interested in, other than me telling you about our success. You're going, well, that's great, but that's not happening where I am. So, okay, let me tell you what we've done that I think you can do where you are, whether it's in New York, California, Midwest, wherever, to make that happen. And I'll tell you the first thing you can do, and I could really just sit down, is you hire John Robert Smith in Transportation for America. No, I'm serious. We as a commission, we met in Mobile, Alabama many years ago. And we were sitting around the table looking at each other going, we're not doing anything but meeting once a quarter and having a nice meal. We're not doing anything. We talk about it. We're not doing a thing. We're not. And it was hard for us to go back to our departments of transportation and say, give us $70,000 to help pay for our meals. That's just, we couldn't, right. I mean, it was bad. And so we all talked to each other and said, what do we do? Well, we started off, we hired a lawyer in D.C. He was a nice enough man. He sent us a nice report every month. We kind of figured out that wasn't getting us anywhere either, but it was a start. Then, John Robert likes to tease us about this. We were thinking about hiring John Robert, and we hired someone else, and that's a whole other story for another day, inside relationships also. So we got through that. We finally had sense enough to hire John Robert, Transportation for America. Now we have Chrissy, we have R&E. Basically, those come from, we got to figure out a way to fund these things. They figured it out. Then they have us up there every year walking around Capitol Hill meeting not only with our representatives and senators. We go see our people we got relationships with. They're glad to see us. But we're meeting with committee chairmen all over the country. We're meeting with senators that have light. We met with like the Southwest Chief Senators, Senator Moran in Kansas. I mean, we met with these people. We would meet with the West Virginia senators, with Senator Schumer's staff. And all of that came about because we've got people that are respected in Washington, D.C., and they say, we need to meet with these yahoos from the South and see what they have to say. And it's incredible because then we get this. We're sitting there in the office with David Price, who was the chairman of one of the transportation committees in the House. He met with us personally. We're meeting with, it got to be kind of crazy. We would meet with all these personal senators and representatives. They don't really do that because they saw the work we were doing. Well, the work we were doing is because we had John Robert telling us, you go do this, and he'd yell at us and say, you're not doing enough, go do this, go do this. So I joke about that, but I don't, is having effective Policy advice is critical. And I don't believe you can succeed without it. I think that's why we have what we have today, is because we have people telling, and we're willing to listen to them, even when we may not agree with them, that we're willing to listen to them. So I would tell you that's the most important thing you can do. Some of you may be aware the FRA is about to announce the availability of commission authority, the multi-state commission funding, which is something that we worked on because we said, our states are putting money in. Shouldn't the federal government be matching that? And they'll match it 50-50. This is a ready way for you to get the money you need to hire people like him, to hire people like the folks that make these nice maps for us, and do our social media and do the things we need done while we're doing it, because we're not paid to do this. We do it, I guess, because we're crazy. I mean, I don't know why, but because we believe in it. It's because we believe in it. But you got to find a way to fund yourself, because if you're not funding yourself, you're really an advocate. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. And we need them. Just like I talked about when the governor comes in, so I'm hearing from all these people. Who are these people? Why do they want this train? It's because you do that. But then at some point you have to take that next step to being a recognized entity that FRA will take meetings with, that members of Congress will take meetings with, that Amtrak will take meetings with, and forming those trusting relationships. And I would encourage you to look into that. I think it's very, very important. But again, having a trusted advisor and policy advisor, these people aren't lobbyists. They don't do that. We do the lobbying. Having a trusted advisor is critical. And that's what I'm saying. Anything else I tell you is great. That's the one thing I want you to remember. You have to have that. And you have that in RPA. I mean, you have that in a general sense in RPA, but RPA is not made to represent specific projects. They will advocate for them, but you have to have somebody that's concentrating on your particular project. Now, I talked about this, steady source of funding. Now, one of the things that the Southern Rail Commission has had the luxury of is that my counterpart in Louisiana was the vice president until he recently retired of the Baton Rouge Area Foundation. Huge foundation. They would take care of all our back office stuff. So you can find people, economic development entities. I think the North Coast Hiawatha people are doing some of this, is they're finding entities that this fits into their thing that they're doing, either economic development, community development, tourism, and let them handle your back office, where you got to pay your bills, set up your meetings, and so forth. That's been a real critical part of us too. So more than anything else, and we find this in our states, and I'll talk about that, is you have to have a champion. In our states, we started off with Senator Cochran was our champion. And then Senator Roger Wicker from Mississippi became our great champion, and he was for a time the chairman of Commerce, the Senate Commerce Committee. He invited me up a couple of times to testify before his committee. He would push Amtrak. He would push the FRA to do things, to advocate for us. Chrissy exists because of him. R&E exists because of him. And it exists because we pushed him and asked him to do it. And that's why it exists. But we continually develop new champions. Our latest champion is Senator Bill Cassidy from Louisiana, who has become a good friend. And he is the advocate on the I-20 corridor. He has turned over his staff to it. I've hosted meetings for him. We had a tremendous meeting in Monroe, Louisiana, where John Robert talked about. He stayed there for 3 hours with Senator Hyde Smith from Mississippi. He is on top of it, and he voted for the IIJA, which was unpopular in his state. And so he is determined to see things come to Louisiana because of his political risk and his vote. And he stays on top of us all the time. I mean, he and I know each other now on first-name basis because he comes back and he says, all right, Knox, where are we? What are you doing? And so I better have some answer for him when I get there. And that's been tremendous. But the one weakness we have as a commission, we really don't have that same champion in the state of Alabama. And I think you see that where we've had all sorts of problems on the Mobile, New Orleans, where we've had problems with the port, problems with the city of Mobile. Well, it's really because we don't have that senator or governor or anybody else that really cares. We believe our relationships are getting better there, and we've got some new people involved with the commission who are making some headway. But you can see where in Mississippi, got it, done. Louisiana, got it. Alabama, right. So, but it's because there's not a champion. There's not this one political figure that can push the button and say, do it. I'm going to call these people and they'll take my call. And I would tell you in your states, try to develop somebody who is your political champion. That makes all the difference in the world. And again, those are developed by the work we do on the Hill, by the relationships we make. And it goes back to, again, I go back to John Robert and his group at Transportation for America. We don't have those relationships without the relationships he's made with the FRA. I mean, we're on first name basis with the FRA folks. We've got great friends that have worked with us closely over the years. We've got great friends at Amtrak who open the door for us every time we come up. They get tired of seeing us. They get tired of listening to us. And they'll finally say, okay, we'll do something. Just, do it. But that has developed those trusting relationships because they know they're pretty confident we're not going to embarrass them, that we're not going to ask for things that are unreasonable or just don't make sense. Again, you've seen these mayors that were up here, and all of them friends of mine that have made huge strides. I mean, Friday Ellis, I wanted him to go into this a little bit more. I mean, think about routes, or you think about the North Coast Hiawatha, which is a great example of where you're trying to get service, like the I-20 corridor. Pulling together the mayors from Boise back over Montana, back to the east, makes a compelling argument to take a look at this. It's not just that one mayor. It's a series of mayors across multiple states who come together with a common purpose. That was the whole thing on the I-20. We had Friday Ellis, we had Ronnie Walker, we had Mayor Arsenault, we had Mayor Flaggs from Vicksburg. But what you have more than that is you have multiple congressional districts. You got 2 senators. You've got 4 senators because you got 2 states. You've got congressional allies across 3 states. Because, Peter, we met in person with 2 of your Texas representatives who sent letters of support. I was shocked. I mean, we were literally shocked. And we walked in, we made meetings with them, cold call, and said, yes, we want to meet with you. They met with us in person, and they said, we understand this. We know it. One of them was a former county commission judge in Texas, which is sort of the president of the county. And he said, yeah, I signed a letter of support for this when I was county commission judge. I'm for it. And these are hard-line Republican representatives, which is the other thing I'd point out to you. Passenger rail is not a blue issue. It's not. It's not. This is why I like doing this, because it's about the one thing you can go to D.C. and you can talk to both sides of the aisle with equal fervor and equal support. Now, yeah, you got a group on both sides that have their own way of thinking, right? So, okay, that's fine. Y'all do that. You go talk to the people who are on the ground there, and that is the one thing. It's not a red issue. It's not a blue issue. It matters to the people. I would tell you when we did the 2016 inspection train across North Florida, the people in North Florida from Pensacola to Tallahassee, they're Trump voters. It's what they are conservative Republican voters. Matt Gaetz represents these people. He's been in the news. Okay, I'm not talking good or bad. I mean, we're not getting into if he's right, wrong, or don't care. But what I'm saying is he represents them. You should go on the website, our website, Transportation for America, and look at the film of that train. And you go through the North Florida towns, thousands of people lining the tracks with flags. And we went back there several times to meetings and where we would have public hearings and thousands, hundreds of people would turn out for this. They want this. This is not a partisan issue. So don't let that stop you from asking someone you think you just assume they're not for it. They might be for it. I mean, Senator Roger Wicker, Republican from Mississippi, is our champion. I mean, you know, John Robert and I meet with him. He says, you know, get this done. I want this done. And he is not someone you would think is the person you want. So keep that in mind. You have Republican mayors in Texas, Mayor of Fort Worth, Republican as they come, all for it. Don't let that stop you. And then as you saw these mayors, their support is extremely critical because elected officials take their call. Main thing is they'll take their call. I can tell you for a fact that Mayor McAdams, and y'all saw her and y'all see, you know, she's pretty tough. And we've known each other since she was elected and we've been good friends. But she said, I'm calling Roger right now. I want this handled. And she's got his cell number. And she calls him and says, you know, I want this done. And then it's done. And you all have mayors in your parts of the country that will do the same thing. You just have to ask them. You have to educate them on it. They'll do it. But the senators' offices, they take their call. They may not take your call. They'll take their call. And I talked about this earlier. The nationwide relationships, the relationships RPA brings to the table, where they're participating in these studies, like the excellent presentation on food service. They're your voice at that table. But as you work through this, you have to make relationships with the staffs of these committees, the committees of decision. T&I in the House, Commerce in the Senate, others. You have to make relationships. I've learned all this. I didn't know any of this. I said, you go to Washington, you talk to your senator or representative, you go home. No. You have to go talk to all these people. You have to make the effort to sell it to them and also connect with them what's going on in their part of the country. I mean, Senator Cantwell, who was the ranking member, is now the chair of Commerce, met with us personally because she heard us talk about it, heard me testify, said, I want to talk to these people because we've got the same thing in Washington State. They've got a multi-state deal from Portland up to Vancouver, British Columbia. They've got all sorts of other ideas. They've got the North Coast Hiawatha coming in there. She says, these are the people doing what I want to do. And so then she's going to make sure that what helps us is going to get done. You know, it's not just Senator Wicker and Senator Hyde-Smith or Senator Cassidy. It's a whole cadre of people. It's a whole group that represents Southwest Chief. It's a whole group that has the Empire Builder. All those people, the Sunset. That's the connections you make. And it's very, very important. But working with Jim and his staff at RPA, you've got Sean on Capitol Hill, and you've got Joe and Ned and the rest. They are working for you every day in the trenches, making that work. And like I said, the presentation was terrific. I mean, now I understand more what's going on and what the outcome is, and hopefully we'll have a positive outcome from that. But it will be because of this staff working that. Now, here's the thing that's the worst, is trying to work with the host railroad. And I've gotten to be friends with some of these people, or I've gotten to know them better. We talk about CPKC has just been terrific. They arranged for myself and my two counterparts to have a meeting in Washington, D.C. in a boardroom at a law firm with their senior leadership. We had 3 executive vice presidents that sat down with us and said, here's how it works. It was incredible, absolutely incredible. We have their national governmental affairs person and I talk on a semi-regular basis. And they know they have a friend here if there's an issue. If they have an issue with their railroad down here and they don't know who to talk to, they call us. And we'll go help them. And we've created a trusting relationship. We don't ask them for anything we don't think is unreasonable. They kind of lead us down the road of what they think is reasonable. And we respect that, and we respect the fact that they own the railroad. It's their railroad. They got to make money on it. We're the guest. Hopefully they treat us as a customer, but we understand that. Now, y'all have read and seen the issues we've had on the coast with a couple of hosts down there. Now, once we brought some money to the table, they're a lot more friendly. Interesting. But one thing that's happened there is changes in leadership at Norfolk Southern, and CSX has made a big difference. And those gentlemen have been much more open and honest with us, and we've tried to continue to be honest with them. We try to continue to think about ways the projects we want to do will benefit them in more fluid track work, bringing it, like on the coast, going to bring that railroad to the 21st century. They're going to be able to meet trains in both directions. There's 14,000-foot trains. They'll have plenty of room to meet those, which they can't today. We did a project with the port of Pascagoula that we are funding through the original CRISI that we got, that's going to really help them and help a short line railroad there. We're constantly thinking about, as we do this, all right, so how can we be a good partner? So is to create trusting relationships, because there's a lot of money out there, and a lot of the large freight railroads and the short lines are trying to figure out, how can we access this? Well, this is your opportunity to sell a project to them, saying, if you help us, we can help you access this big pot of money to do the work you want to do, because freight railroading is a horribly capital-intensive business. Billions of dollars invested every year in their freight infrastructure. If we can bring some money to them, that's good for the shareholders, it's good for them, it's good for what we want, which is more trains for more people in more places. So you think about all that. But I think those relationships are getting a little bit better, and you should take advantage of that as you move along. And then finally, I told you earlier, we do ask ourselves many times, how stupid are we? We would be working, and we're sitting here going, we're running up and down the road, burning up, and all we get out of this is they reimburse our expenses, and we get to meet nice people like y'all. I mean, that's all we get. And why? And then we made up these really nice seals that look really official, but we made those up. I mean, they really will get you in places. People look at that. Oh, yeah. Well, who is he? Right. So it's been helpful, but you just can't give up on it. There's been so many times, and Todd Stennis and I talk about this, that we kind of got to a point where, okay, that we're at zero. I mean, it's not going to move any further. Then somebody'd show up. Somebody would come on and say, oh, no, here, I can get you 5 more yards down the road. I can do that. And I think there were many times, and I'm very much convinced of this with the previous CSX folks, that I think they thought we would finally just go away. They'll keep going, well, we got them on an inspection train. They had their jollies. They can run some films and go home. Okay, so, but then, they come back and say, well, we don't really need you to run that train past Mobile. Knowing that we had gone to the states and said, you're not going to have to pay any operating dollars. This is just going to be a capital project. And so then I had to go back to the governors and the state transportation commissioners and say, you know what? You remember when I told you that? I didn't really mean it. And so that, you'd have all sorts of stuff like that. And I think a lot of those were sort of roadblocks that said, they're not going to do any more than that. Those people are crazy. They're not going to do it. Why are they even doing that? And we would show up like my counterpart from Louisiana was referred to in Kansas City as that man from Baton Rouge. Is it that man from Baton Rouge? So it's a lot of it is just stick-to-itiveness. Is you saying, okay, I got this far. What do we do next? And you lean on your experts like Jim and his staff, Transportation for America. You lean on your friends in these transportation departments. I mean, I can't emphasize how big the letter that Peter Lakota read to you We've been working on I-20 for years. I went to a meeting in Marshall, showed a picture of an inspection train in 1984, sitting in front of the Marshall station. 1984. I was in high school. All right. Still been working on it. We got Amtrak has come around and said, we want to be a part of it. You could have just thrown me off the building at that point. That was unbelievable. Because they're like, we don't want to do it. We went through time in previous leadership. This does not include present leadership at all, where they said, we're not going to run long distance trains. We're going to put a bus bridge on. We're going to do all this stuff. And you're like, okay. And now it's like, yeah, there's some things we can do that make sense. So that's what I tell you. You just got to keep trying. When you get to it, I can tell you, it's like, I can sit out there today and go, what am I doing here? I could be at a ball game or something. But it's because of the people like you and the people you represent, because I'm a small-town mayor. I was a small-town mayor for 16 years. I was president of the Mississippi Municipal League. I got it about cities and little towns in Sanderson, Texas. That's my heart. And you go and see this and you say, nobody's advocating for them. Nobody really cares about them. But this is important to them. And I'll close with, we did the ribbon cutting for the Knox, Mississippi platform, middle of the Delta, broke as a haint. My brother-in-law grew up there. His father was a pharmacist in Knox, Mississippi. Roger Wicker worked for years trying to get that stop there. It was just terrible trying to do it. And that's where he learned about relationships with hosts and all that. So we get on the train. Mayor Mac Adams was with us. We get on the train in Greenwood to go to Marks. All going to get off the train. Hoorah, got the platform. So I'm on the train. I said, Senator, y'all, Mississippi is a club. Everybody knows everybody. So Senator Wicker and his wife are from Tupelo. My sister and her husband live in Tupelo. They all have children the same age. They're all friends. It's a club. We all know each other, or we're related. And so, so I know. I said, Gail, let's go get a glass of wine out of the club car. So I think it's a good idea. So we go through the car, and he walks and he's talking to the passengers as he comes by. And he realizes that these people had gotten on a train in Brookhaven or Hazelhurst or Jackson or Yazoo City. They had a sack lunch with them, and they were riding that train to Chicago all the way. That's the only way they can get there. They're going to see their family. They're going for work. They're going for whatever, but it's important to them. This is important transportation. This isn't retirees and the sleeping car. This is people, which is nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But these are people that rely on this as necessary transportation. And it's important for them to be clean, neat, put together a decent product. Because it's tough. Amtrak's under budgetary constraints. I got all that. Put together a product with the limitations that are there, but seeing that these are people that use it because they have to. This is the way they have to go. They can't fly. There is no bus. Megabus doesn't run to Mississippi. Greyhound just about doesn't. And this is how they get there. And they bring their sack, and they sit in their seat, and they got a blanket, and they go to Chicago. And he saw it. And he said, okay. That's when he became our champion. That's when he said, this needs to happen. And y'all get to work and get this done. But that's what I would tell you. If you can ever get that one person and show them what it really is, not what people say it is, not what people that hate on it say it is, not what people say, it's just a waste of money. Well, I'm tired of paying for your car to ride up and down the 16-lane highway too. Same thing. It's just it's funded a little differently. That's the thing you have to do is show them where they can touch it, they can feel it, then you've got your champion. You've got it. Doesn't matter if Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. But that's that's how we did it, and it's worked. Oddly enough, it's incredible. It's a miracle. I mean, it is, but it did, and you can do it too. You absolutely can do it with the help of RPA, with the help of folks like John Robert, with the help of your elected officials. You can do it, and you can get it done, and it'll make a difference for your communities, and it's something that will last for a long time. I'd be happy to take any questions you might have. John Robert. Oh, we do. Good. Terrific. All right. So, yes, this is the video that Transportation for America put together of our 2016 inspection train from New Orleans to Jacksonville. Yeah, you want my mic? Okay, all right. I'll go ahead and take some questions. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. Okay. Yeah, all right.
Got to find it first. So the question is, can champions be on the state government level? Because they must be federal in these cases. We have, and this person said we have two at least federal level elected officials who try to defund Amtrak where he's from. So
no, I understand that. Yes, the answer is absolutely. You need them. In Mississippi, the Transportation Commission is elected, only place in the country. So it really operates separately from the governor's office. You have 3 elected commissioners, and they actually pay what we call dues every year for our operation. So the late Dick Hall, who was the previous transportation commissioner from my area, and then his successor, former state senator Willie Simmons, have been our champions. And really, because of them, they've pushed the Mississippi Department of Transportation to do. I mean, I'll give you an example. The Fed State Partnership Grant, we were down to the last minute. Mississippi needs $1 million. We've been asking them. We'd send them letters. We got on a hallway in the Senate office building on a call with the commission, with Commissioner Simmons, debating this and saying, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. So if we didn't have state champions, we wouldn't be here. We certainly wouldn't be participating in the Fed State Partnership Grant. And no, you have to have champions all the way up. You have to have local champions. Mayors like these mayors, especially like Adams, who has a stop right now. You have to have those people. You have to have state champions. I mean, we've got like the governor of Louisiana is a great supporter of ours and has been pushing this for his term. And you have to have federal champions because our statewide elected officials in Mississippi are a little ambivalent. You have to find the right people. No, that's a great question, but you have to have them at all levels.
Frank, I think you had a remark or a question.
Yeah, I wanted to just support all of what you're saying. I joined FRA in February. Prior to that, I worked for the Minnesota Department of Transportation. I still live in Minnesota. I work remotely. But my main job at MnDOT was the Northern Lights Express. And we also have TCMC. And, in Minnesota, it is a partisan issue, unfortunately. But last fall, we got a group of senators and representatives together, and we took a ride in the Empire Builder from Minneapolis to Milwaukee. And the chair of the Senate Transportation Committee, a Republican, one of our biggest opponents, was there on that trip. We kind of dared him to come. We were less than 1/3 of the way to Milwaukee, and we had him. And it's for the reason that you suggested. These are real people. They're not that storied senior citizens on a joyride. Right. They're real people, and he could see that. And we walked down in the entire train. He talked to people. So the next legislative session, $1 million. Right. So
I'll add. Okay, let me add to this real quick. So last year, Louisiana hosts DC Mardi Gras every year. It's a big meeting of everybody in Louisiana in Washington. we coordinated with Amtrak to host a group of Louisiana legislators led by their Speaker of the House on the train, and we went from New Orleans Union Station to Washington, D.C. Now, I'm not saying these people were against us, but they're for us now. I mean, if they weren't for us, they're for us now. Because you got legislators on the train, you've got them. Whatever I got to do, just get me there. So no, it was terrific, and that is exactly how you do it. You know, get some people together, go buy some tickets, and take these people and show them, because they'll listen to the naysayers and the haters. Oh, that's just a bunch of old folks, or that's just people that just foamers or something. It's not true. Not at all. Not at all. Right.
If Amtrak were an airline, it would be the 5th biggest airline in the country. So of course the taxpayers have a role in this.
When they come here, they love you. Now we're going to get them here. We're going to get them on board. We're going to get them on this train, and they're going to be here, and they're going to stay, and they're going to love it. And this is going to be where they talk to all of their friends from all across the nation and say, if you want to see the beauty of God's great creation, go to the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Thank you all aboard.
We've got the top brass. We've got the local leaders. We're going to make this work for Mississippi and for the taxpayers. Thank you very much.
We just need more people. We just need more people to come and see this beautiful city, come see this beautiful Gulf Coast. Come and stay a week or a month or two. Bring their money with them.
Gentlemen, Tallahassee, we gotta have it. So we're what? Fired up? Fired up?
So that was Republican leader in the Senate, Republican governor. I guarantee you, every county we went to until you got to Tallahassee. That's what you have to realize. This is not a partisan issue in a country that is horribly partisan. It is not. Is people want this? They look at this as their connection to the country, and this is their opportunity to bring people to their town. This is their piece. This is their piece of America. This is their hope, and I think you saw that demonstrated right there.
Where the volume lapse was, he said, we're going to get people from all over the country to come to God's great creation on the Mississippi. He's got waxed on a little eloquent there. But he said, what we want you to do is come down, visit us, bring your money with them. I'm going to get you that train. I will come back to that remark when you and
I know that you will. I've done this before. I just want to point out one thing before we take the next question on the whole nonpartisan, bipartisan issue. You guys may remember the polling that we commissioned, the independent polling we commissioned. 78% of Americans support sustained investment of over $100 billion in passenger rail. 78%. That includes 61% of Republican voters we polled. So this does have to be a partisan issue. Next question. Andrew.
I had to step over John Roberts' shoulder and ask him, did the senator get a cab ride? And he says, oh, yeah. And what's going through my mind is, boy, that's a good evangelizing tool. You give some, you let him ride around in a cab, and he's a rail fan for life. But I'll ask you, Knox. I appreciate you being here, but really quickly, name something you don't like or what you would change if you were king for a day about the commission structure when you talk about spreading the idea to other regions. One thing you change.
Funding. I mean, we have we have an excellent group of commissioners, and it works really well. I'll step back up here, but it works really well. We've got good commissioners from all three states. That waxes and wanes, quite frankly, depending on the governor and who gets appointed, because it's a gubernatorial appointment. They send you a nice certificate suitable for framing, and you can put it on your wall and say, I'm a gubernatorial appointee. But some people, that's what they want. But we get good people that help us. But the one thing I would say is that we're at a point now where we have to have more funding because we're going to be operating a service. And so that's really our goal with our next legislative session, and also our goal with the commission structure, the grant opportunity that'll be coming forward. That's the one. If you ask me one thing, that's what we have to have, because we've got to hire a legal team. We've got to hire somebody to oversee the service. We've got to do all that, and that's the one thing would be. And it's not a lot of. We're not talking about millions and millions of dollars that we need. It's we look at it's probably $300,000 a state to make it work. But that would be the one thing.
I'm going to ask you keep standing up there,
yeah,
and I'll hand this back to you. And Andrew, just as an aside, I was on that inspection train ride, and I watched as Senator Wicker came down from that cab ride. He went down the ladder. He kind of made that last few feet jump down to the ballast, and he's running along the ballast, and he goes, "Woo! That was great. I wanted to do that since I was a kid." You think he's a fan for life? He's a fan for life. Okay, Paul, are you lined up for a question here?
Just a question for Mayor Ross. Excellent presentation. Thank you for your sustained leadership and friendship on this. Just a question on that Mardi Gras in D.C. train trip. What was your bar tab at the end of the day on that one? Maybe don't answer that one.
Well, the key to the Washington Mardi Gras trip is to find good sponsors. And you go to everybody else's receptions. You get invited to the reception. So, yeah, I'll tell you, I mean, that's a good question because, all right, so what's the point of doing that? And we had a great ride. We had the Speaker of the House. I mean, these were mostly Republican elected officials on this train. They were really the Speaker and his guests. But when we got to D.C., John Robert and I, we went to the New Orleans meeting, had a great conversation with the mayor and with the RTA director there. We got to go to the Bossier City. We got to the Shreveport. We got to the Monroe. We were able, in an atmosphere, to talk to these elected officials. And it was really, really valuable for us. And then, we come in like we know what we're doing because everybody knows we rode up with the elected officials from Louisiana. So, well, they must be important because they rode up with them. Sort of like this pen, right? And so it got us into more places. But no, that's really good. But, yeah, I mean, you got to find sponsors. You got to be creative.
Just as a follow-up, though, what I've heard repeatedly is the power of getting an elected official on the train and letting them see who actually rides. It's the cross-section of the entire country, their entire city, and then all joking aside about the hospitality, that's part of the experience, and it's an opportunity to show them the best of our train travel in their community. So thank you very much on that. And it's a lot of fun.
It is, but it's also important over and over and over again. I would tell you, the more you can get your elected officials on the train, because most of them don't ride them outside the Northeast Corridor. We go talk to them, oh, yeah, well, I rode up to New York. Well, I mean, that's great, and I have too. My daughter lives in Ardmore, Pennsylvania, right down from the Amtrak station, uses the service. And I've gotten her fixed up with her Amtrak card and everything else. But a lot of people don't ride the rest of the system. And they forget about it. And then they listen to the naysayers and the people that we won't mention any of their names who say, it's just joyride for the affluent, as a gentleman from Mobile would say. And you're saying, no, not at all. I mean, I'll tell you a story. When the bridge burned in Louisiana and truncated the city of New Orleans at Jackson, I was supposed to go to New Orleans for a meeting. And everybody said, well, you saw to drive down there. I said, no, I'm doing this. I'm going to go experience it. I want to see. How does this work? What is the experience? So I get to Jackson. I know Rob, the station agent, so I'm talking to him. I did an interview, Peter, with the local news station who was down there covering it. And then I got to watch the passengers come off the train. And it just stuck in my mind. I saw this young African-American mother with twin girls dressed in their beautiful pink jackets come off that train. And I'm like, we all talk about people ought to do better and ought to be better. Well, there it is. Here's a mother who has her children dressed to the nines. She's probably going to New Orleans to see their grandma. I don't know what they were doing. I bet. But they were doing what we as a society ask people to do. And if you don't have a reliable, good train service, they probably can't afford a plane ticket. What are we going to do? Isn't that worth some investment in allowing people to live a pleasant life in a free country? I mean, when I still see it, I'm like, that's who we serve. That single mother and her two children, that's who we serve. And that's why this service needs to work and be reliable and be something that we can all be proud of.
So what I'm kind of hearing you say to me is when I get back, one of my jobs is to go get an elected official and get them on the train and see it. So that's something, just like Ned had that great checklist of all the things that you can do to advocate, then that's something that I can actually do is find an elected official, figure out how to put them on the train and let them see that for themselves.
But, Exactly. That's right. They said no. Exactly. Okay. So I'm gonna paraphrase what you said. Is that you took Cory Gardner, who was U.S. representative at the time from Colorado, who was eventually elected U.S. senator from Colorado, Republican. They took him on the train. They took some other elected officials on the train. When a private consultant came in and said the trains need to go, all they had to do was go back to these folks and then the three Democrats and say, no, that's not going to happen, and it didn't happen. And because they had already laid the groundwork for it. I mean, let's just take what Larry Chesler's doing, running the long distance network. You and I go to our congressman and say, well, we need some more money for the long distance network. They go, okay, who rides that? Nobody I talk to does. But if they've ridden it and they know who's on it, then they'll listen, right? It's easier for us to go and ask for help and ask for specific things. And it makes the job easier for you when they're familiar with it, when they know it. And I think we probably hit on something here that we need to explore.